Welcome to Watch. Good morning, wherever you are in Liberia. Welcome to another edition of the program Integrity Watch. This is your hour-long radio program that is produced by Centaur. And in case you do not know, Centaur is the Center for Transparency and Accountability in Liberia. We have an overarching goal of ensuring that Liberia is free of corruption. That's what we are established and that's what we are engaged with. And we're doing several things, several activities we're implementing to ensure that Liberia is free of corruption, that we can have a society that everyone can live peacefully and enjoy the fruits of our nation. This radio program serves as a primary radio-based communication and information dissemination platform. It's also a key advocacy tool that provides essential information about the state of the fight against corruption and national integrity building efforts. In case you want to know what's happening in the areas of the fight against corruption and what the government and other civil society actors are doing in the areas of building a culture of accountability and transparency and integrity in Liberia, this is the platform that you should in tune to. My name is Edward Blamo. I'm your host, and I'm here along with Mark W. Bondao, bringing you this edition of the program Integrity Watch. We will take a break to get a few bars of our jingle, and once we return, we will get into our program. Let's take this break.
What is this? We're waiting for the answer. Have a new anti-corruption.
Welcome back to the program Integrity Watch. As we stated, this program is produced by Centaur and is the primary radio-based communication and information dissemination platform of Centaur. This is where we discuss issues of transparency, accountability, and we talk about the roles we are playing in the fight against corruption and other organizations who are working to ensure that we promote good governance and fight against corruption. And as you may be aware, this program is also an activity of our National Integrity Building and Anti-Corruption Program. This is a 3 year program that is supported by the government and people of Sweden through the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, SIDA. And as part of that program, we are doing several other things, one of which is our Advocacy and Legal Advice Center. This is a center that is housed at Centaur with lawyers, equipped with lawyers, trained lawyers who are ready and willing to receive complaints of corruption from you, members of the public. If you are in a space, you are working somewhere and you stumbled upon something, corruption, or someone is involved into a corrupt act or corrupt practice, you have a platform available for you to call and report. And that platform is the Advocacy and Legal Advice Center. And you just need a phone that is charged, that is able to make a call. And once you have that, you can call 4432. And once you dial 4432, you will talk to a representative of ILAC. And you could have a Lone Star's phone or an Orange phone, whichever way, you are still able to make that call free of charge or by dialing 4432. The lawyers at ILAC are trained to, ask you the kind of questions that, you need, the information that you need to provide. They will ask you questions that will allow you to provide sufficient information that they will use to do their investigation and afterwards forward to the Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission. So there's no time to sit back and just complain about corruption. Oh, corruption is in Liberia, this sector is corrupt, and that other sector is corrupt, the government is corrupt. But it's time for us to take actions. And the action is to report. If you do not report corruption, we are never going to end corruption. We're never going to end corruption in Liberia. If you don't join the LACC to fight corruption, we are never going to end this scourge of corruption in Liberia, because the LACC does not have the manpower to be everywhere at every time. They're limited in terms of capacity, in terms of manpower. So it is you who in the communities, is you who is in the marketplaces and everywhere in the offices. You are there, so you can help the LACC. So if you see something, say something. And we have this platform. That's why we didn't allow you to pay to make the call. It's free of charge. We've paid for that through our partner, SIDA. So all you need to do is to take advantage of that and make a call. For example, you see nepotism at your office. Call Centaur's Advocacy and Legal Advice Center. You see, sextortion. You're in school and then a teacher is trying to extort sex from you for grade. That's extortion. That's a form of corruption. You can call Centaur's Advocacy and Legal Advice Center. Bribery, money laundering, all the other forms of corruption, a lot of them. Any one of them that happens, you have the platform available to you to report and seek redress to corruption. And that platform is our Advocacy and Legal Advice Center. There are other means through which you can reach out to ALAC, and one of which is through email. You can send an email to ALAC, ALAC, at centaur.org.lr. Again, it's ALAC at centaur.org.lr. And also, you could leave a WhatsApp message to 0555 722 113. Once you leave a message to that number, the lawyers at Centaur will respond. They are trained to respond to you, and they are trained to protect your identity. A lot of times people are afraid, oh, I'm not going to report. If I report corruption, I'm going to lose my job, and this and that will happen to me. People are going to come after me. It's not going to be the case. Because if you report corruption to Centar, the lawyers are trained to protect your identity. They are never going to disclose your identity unless you yourself go and disclose your own identity. Nobody's going to disclose your identity. In fact, we as staff of Centar, we don't have that ready access to ELAC. As we don't even know who we put a case or what. It's completely confidential. Everything about ELAC is confidential at Centar. So you need not to be afraid. You need not to worry. All you need to do is to master the courage, be serious about the fight against corruption, report corruption as you see it and when you see it. All right. So there are a couple of other things we're doing. We're not going to talk a lot about them. Like, for example, our Integrity Club outreach program at universities, 4 universities, where we are training young people in becoming anti-corruption ambassadors. We're deploying them in their classrooms, in their communities, you know, uh, heralding anti-corruption messages. And our open expenditure initiative, where we're working with county officials, especially local county officials, county council members, and other folks, including the legislators and the local authorities, to ensure that there is transparency around the utilization of the county's social development funds and other allocations to those counties. We're doing all of that on our open expenditure initiative. We are also running our National Integrity Forum, where we are supporting government anti-graft institutions, the LACC, the GSC, the PPCC, the Governance Commission, the National Elections Commission. All of those anti-graft institutions are part and parcel of our National Integrity Forum, and we support that forum with resources through our partner to conduct activities, including activities geared towards ensuring that there's transparency around service delivery in government. Now, if you go to the Ministry of Transport, that forum has erected 2 billboards, giant-sized billboards, that have all of the fees for services at the Ministry of Transport, so that if you're going to access a driver license or you want to get a driver license, you will know how much it costs to get a driver license, that the possibility of you being exploited is reduced. We have similar things at the Business Registry, like the Immigration Service, the Bureau of Vital Statistics, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, and there are plans to extend to other institutions providing service or services to the public. And we're doing a lot, including our corruption case tracker. We are developing a corruption case tracker that will allow you, members of the public, to have access to information around corruption. As you may know, the LACC is prohibited on the new law for diverging information, allegations of corruption. Before, the LACC will have press conferences and announce, oh, this person has been investigated for corruption. Now the new law has forbidden the LACC from doing that. So what we are doing as Centar is to give you the information. If there's an allegation of corruption out there about somebody in government or somebody somewhere, Centar is going to have that allegation posted on the corruption case tracker. And if that allegation goes to court, Centar is going to post that as well on the corruption case tracker. So you're going to know everything about corruption on that case tracker, from allegation to investigation to prosecution to decision or verdict, as the lawyers will say. So everything you need to know about corruption will be available on the corruption case tracker. We are at the concluding stage of that case tracker. We expect to launch it very soon, so watch out for it. We'll share the links with you. We'll share the handles so that you can visit and interact and learn more about what corruption is like in Liberia. That is that. We will take a very short break and adjust, and when we come back, we will speak to our guest, who is Joseph Cheyen. He is the Executive Director for the Institute for Democratic Action and Development. They are a civil society organization working in the areas of transparency and good governance and accountability and so much more. So let's take this break. And once we return, we will speak to our guests. Welcome back to the program Integrity Watch. And as we stated, this program is for you, members of the public. It's meant for you to actively participate in discussions around corruption. For too long, we've done discussions around corruption, but it's always been at the back. We sit in our corners, in our houses, and in our, you know, various centers in our communities, and talk about corruption. The government is corrupt. This person is corrupt. That person is corrupt. But it's so seldom that we elevate our discussions to a national level or to a national platform where policymakers can listen and take actions. So that is why we Central we decided to invest in this. I mean, so that you can actively participate. We want to build an active citizenry, uh, which are very pivotal in the fight against corruption. You know, you cannot succeed in the fight against corruption anywhere in the world without active citizens' participation. That is why we have this program. So when we open the lines, we encourage you to call if you're seeing something, talk about it, actively engage and participate in corruption-related discussions. As we stated, we have our guest, and he's the executive director for the Institute for Democratic Action and Development. His name is Joseph Chayan, and he's here this morning. Good morning, Joseph.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here again. And the last time I was on the ECOWAS radio,
Okay.
the center program, and I'm so delighted to be here. And thanks for the invitation. Yeah.
Okay, so the Institute for Democratic Action and Development. What are you involved with? What do you do?
Okay, thank you again this morning. And as I said, it's a pleasure to be here. And the Institute for Democratic Action and Development, that is a civil society organization, and they're registered institutions that is promoting democracy, national resource management,
Mm.
political accountability in our country. And as a civil society organizations, we have been working with communities to strengthen our governance system over the past, and that which we are passionate and we are so glad and to talk about that this morning. Yeah.
Okay, what are some of the activities that you have, implemented or you are implementing or you've carried out? Can you name some of them?
Yeah, so since our establishment in 2019 as a civil society organizations, we have been working with different development partners and including the UNDP, the USAID, the Action Aid, and then so basically on our rule of law program, we have been working with UNDP to promote access to justice,
Mm.
and where we have been able to train 50 traditional leaders to be able to understand different statutes, which we refer to as legislations in our country.
Mm.
And basically, the issue about the informal justice system is also important in terms of contributing to our justice system because in the rural communities, you will understand that you don't have much presence of the police, and and in fact the issue about court processes. So the traditional leaders also play a critical role in terms of our justice system. So over the past time, we have been able to train them to be able to understand different statutes, the
Mm.
issues around referral pathway, and then how they can also handle some cases and then cases that are not also under their control and so forth. So we have been able to train them. So as part of the decentralization process, we have also been working with UNDP, Liberia as a country transitioning from the centralized governance systems. We think it was also necessary as a civil society organizations to be involved in the process to ensure that our citizens understand the local government act and that what is there for them and their own rules and so forth, because the acceptance of the local government act is critical in terms of the decentralization process. So we have been working with UNDP over the past times to be able to strengthen our citizens' understanding about the local government act, even including the 2022 revenue sharing law. So what is there for the local government in terms of revenue sharing and so forth. Although in the law they said that after 10 years in terms of before the revenue can be shared, but we think there are some basic issues that there's some provisions of the legislations that citizens need to understand to be able to accept what is there and how can we move forward in terms of transition of and the decentralization process. So as part of the process, the government as part of the process in terms of understanding line ministers and agency performances in terms of how they are working, in terms of service delivery. The government was able to pass what we call the CFN. The CFN is a citizen feedback platform that
Okay.
allowed citizens to provide feedback on services that have been provided by the different line ministers and agencies. So the government in 2015 also established county services centers in all of
Mm,
the 15 counties. So as
mm.
part of the process, you have these land ministries and agencies that are providing services. So we are also been educating citizens in terms of what are the services that are available at the county service centers, the cost related issue, looking at accountability issues and so forth. So we are also been engaging citizens in terms of understanding the governance processes, how they can get to the county service center and be able to understand these services and and access them, and then be able to understand what the related cost of these services. Yeah, basically that's what
And
we have
and
been doing.
and you are also a part of the civil society activity project of Recent Tie is a sub grantee to the Development Alternative Incorporated. Tell us what's your role like, or what some of the things you're doing as part of that project.
Yeah, so IDAD was one of the civil society institutions that were fortunate to have gotten grant
Okay.
from USAID on the CSA project, which is the
Mm,
library, which is the civil society activity project in Liberia. And then basically for us, we are working with 80 civil capacity basically is to understand policy advocacies, policies analysis, and then advocating for transparent and accountable service delivery processes. So what we have been able to do as a civil society organizations, we have been able to hire a team of trained lawyers
okay.
and who are well trained, understand the kind of the policy environment and so forth. So they have been also providing what we call mentorship to civil society organizations in Mosurado and Lima counties to be able to do policy advocacy and then policies analysis and be able to engage stakeholders in terms of policy reform. As you may be aware, there are a lot of legislations that have been passed, but there
Mm,
are certain essential provisions of these laws are not being implemented. For
okay.
example, if you look at the educational reform law, which was passed in 2011, and then in the law, there's a provision that says government, the Ministry of Education should be able to set guidelines and regulations in terms of tuition payment, and so that we have the kind of uniformity in terms of schools or maybe the faith-based institutions will not
Mm,
just be able to work on it and call the kind of hard racketing
mm,
tuition practice in our country. So the government should be able to coordinate that. But over the past time, you realize that institutions can just decide their own, and
your fees.
the fees and so
Mm,
forth, and yeah, then and which is also affecting parents, which you realize that many children sometimes they will not even go to school because their parents don't have the money. And then so we are also being on the back of the Ministry of Education to ensure that these kind of provisions are implemented. Because if we are saying that we want our educational system to be transformed to meet the kind of standards so that our children can have the kind of enabling environment, then we think these legislations we need to look at the in terms of the implementation process. So as part of this project, we are also been looking at the Local Government Act,
okay.
and then we are also been looking at what's the role of the chiefs, and in terms of the decentralization process,
Mm,
what are some of the provisions that are necessary that the locals need to understand their role. So we are also been educating them in terms of how they are understanding their own role, and then how can they effectively play that role to ensure that we realize the decentralization process in our country.
okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, you are part of the training with civil society organizations is to ensure that there is advocacy, increased advocacy in the areas of tuition and PTEs and other things. Do you think that is yielding any positive results? Because yes, you are training CSOs and they are increasing advocacy, but have you seen change? Are we seeing a reform in terms of education, in terms of supervision from the Ministry of Education? Because we're still seeing schools charging astronomical fees for graduations and even tuitions. I mean, what are you doing about that?
Yeah, we think there are progress that we are making, and then because for example, if you look at the 2024
Mm,
national budget, as civil society organizations, we were able to work with the Ministry of Education and push the legislature, talk to them to be able to make some increment in the national budget for the Ministry of Education in terms of the educational sector. So we were able to transition the allotment from around 12% over the past time in terms of what was given to the Ministry of Education or to the educational sector to at least to 14.8%. So we think we are making some effort in terms of pushing for improvement in the educational sector budget, and these are some of the issues that we have been looking at. So what we have also been doing, as I said, we have been strengthening the capacity of these civil society organizations. You know, over the past time, civil society have been paying lawyers to be able to understand some of these legislations. So over the past time, they have not been able to do that because today have been the legal clinic to be able to receive free legal aid in terms of what some of the issues they need to understand, how can they engage the national government on the policy reform or the implementation of some of these challenges that are in the laws and so forth. So civil society are now engaging and then they are understanding the policy environment and so forth. So that we think we are making some progress, and we know that we get there. We know that it's challenging, but we think the environment gradually will get there. Yeah.
Yes, I mean we'll come later on to the legal aid clinic and some of the things you're doing there, some of the maybe success stories. But let's talk a little bit about this whole education, this whole education aspect of your program with USAID. I mean, you talk about incrementing budgetary allotment for education, but when you travel out in the counties, you realize that the needs are daunting. There are very, very huge educational needs. Some schools don't have desks for students. There's some leaking roof. There's some a lot of things happening in the educational sector. And you're talking about 14% increment. Do you buy into the idea for alternative or resource mobilization to support education in Liberia?
Yes, and that's why we are saying, because we know that the revenue envelope of the government is low. So we understand that there are other priorities areas in terms of the government. You have the Ministry of Health, you have agriculture, and so forth. So this is why we are also working with the Ministry of Education to see how can we look at other development partners who can provide support in terms of infrastructure, looking at schools and so forth and other kind of things. So although we know that the percentage is low, but we think the Ministry of Education can be able to manage that and be able to make a little impact in terms of maybe improving the infrastructures of the different schools in the county, for example, maybe schools that don't have these kind of maybe armchairs, and then how can you look at how many percentage of schools in these rural communities, if the ministry can also do a critical analysis to see how many schools in these counties that are not that don't have available infrastructures, for example, and chairs, and maybe leaking roof, and how can they to be able to repair some of these things, and then to look at teachers and providing better incentives for them. Some of the volunteer teachers, as over the past time, for example, Ministry of Education have been talking that there are 25,000 teachers who have been volunteering, and we're talking about how to be able to enroll them so that they can be a full-time teachers and be able to beef up the strength of the other teachers who have been when working over the past times and be able to improve the learning environment for our children and so forth. So we think the ministry can also, and I would trust the ability of the current minister to engage different development partners like the USAID, the EU, the UNDPs to be able to provide additional funding to the Ministry of Education, because even the percentage is very low, 14%. Other countries around the world, they have been able to, especially in Africa, they have been able to meet the benchmark in terms of the 20% that we have been opting for as a country. And then there are a lot of benefits also if we reach that 20%. So we are hoping, we are working with the legislature. We know that the committee chair on Ways, Means and Finance, is waiting to listen to civil society and the Ministry of Education to make sure that maybe in the next fiscal budget to see how we can meet the benchmark from that 14% we can reach to the 20%, and then we can be able to meet that benchmark. Yeah.
Okay. Part of your vision is to have an active PTAs, where they can hold the administrators accountable, they can be part of decisions. How are you doing that? How are you ensuring that PTAs across public schools are very effective and that they can hold the administrators accountable?
Yes. So as a civil society organization, what we have been doing is the first thing we have been doing is to be able to make the PTAs, at well established, because there are a lot of counties that are not still have a well organized PTA. So that's what we have been doing. We have been
Mm,
able to set up and reactivate those ones that have not been active and so forth. So we have been providing capacity support to in terms of how they understand their role, how they contribute to the educational
mm,
system, and so forth. Over the past time, in fact, PTAs are now involved with the issue of constructions of schools, and if they are putting schools that are not events, and
mm.
putting fence around them, and then providing some logistical support to schools and so forth. So these are some of the effort that we have made over the past time to make sure that PTAs are more effective
Okay.
and well organized and providing support to our public schools. Yeah.
Okay, you're listening to Integrity Watch, and this is your hour-long radio program produced by Centaur. And this is a part of our National Integrity Building and Anti-Corruption Program. In fact, it's an activity of our National Integrity Building and Anti-Corruption Program. This is a platform where you are encouraged, you out there, members of the public, to participate actively in discussions around corruption and give your contributions or suggestions. And policymakers are listening, stakeholders are listening, everyone is listening. So there's a platform that is available for you to make your voice heard around corruption. And today we have Joseph Chayan. He's the executive director for the Institute for Democratic Action and Development. They are involved with a lot of activities around good governance, accountability, transparency, and they are also an organization that is working, that received some grant from USAID as part of the Civil Society Activity Project. And Centaur, in case you do not know, now Centaur is a sub-grantee to the Development Alternative Incorporated, DAR, who is the organization that is directly implementing this civil society activity project. And the Institute for Democratic Action and Development happens to be one of the cluster of organizations that Centaur supervises. And he's here talking about some of the activities around that project, on some of the things you're doing, especially around promoting transparency and accountability within the public school system, around PTAs, around registration fees, around other things to ensure that we can have a very vibrant educational sector. And in case you're out there, you would like to participate, the number to call is 0777 285 961. Again, the 0777 285 961. In case you would like to ask questions to Joseph, you would like to get some clarity, you need to make suggestions around the programs and the things that they're doing at ADA, and you can just put your points through by calling 0777 Now let's get to the legal aid clinic. What was the need? What did you discover as a need that gave rise to the establish or gave birth to this particular legal aid clinic?
Okay, so over the past time, civil society organizations have been facing a lot of challenges in
Mm,
terms of accessing, well qualified lawyers who understand the policy, the environment, and so
mm,
forth. And the cost you
mm,
run Centaur, and then the cost in terms of hiring a lawyer. So
mm,
over the past time, we have been observing that civil society organizations face a lot of challenges in terms of getting lawyers and to do analysis of legislation, and
mm,
then to see how can they advise government whether these legislations or policies are actually in terms of implementations is
mm,
actually going well. So it was on that basis that we thought that there was a need to have a legal clinic where civil society organizations can have access to legal aid and can have trained lawyers who can provide policies advice to them. So that's what we have been doing over the past time. So in Monrovia, we have the legal clinic at that office, and
Okay.
then where
So
lawyer,
where is other office? For example, you are
yeah,
CSO in.
our office in Concord Town, in
Okay.
opposite the Orange Tower,
Okay.
in Concord Town after RC Lawson. If you are coming from town, if you are coming from Painesville after
Mm.
Charleston House, is our office is right on the road. Yeah,
Where are the other
yeah,
clinics?
yeah. So the other clinic is in Ganta
Okay.
City, Nima County, and then when
Where
you get
exactly
there,
in Ganta? In case somebody is there, they.
around the youth center, yeah,
Okay.
in Nima County, in
Okay.
Ganta. Yeah, so when you get there, and then we would get a team of lawyers who can talk to you. So, for example, you want to do an analysis in terms of the revenue sharing law
Mm.
to see what some of the benefits for local government, what's the benefit for central government, and you might not be able to understand some of the legal jargons and so forth. So our lawyers can help you to do an analysis of these laws and provide advice to you to see some of the gaps in terms of the implementations of the law, or some of the issues, some of the provisions that are not applicable in terms of our current reality that need to be reformed. And you can talk about that and so forth, and then they can help you in terms of doing that a critical analysis and then the advice you.
So is it
Yeah.
absolutely free, or is it
Yeah,
done at a very reduced cost
it's
to CSOs?
absolutely free. You don't
Wow.
need to pay a dime to any lawyer that will provide that legal advice to you. And we
Mm.
have been doing that for the past 1 year, since 2023 up to date. We are still doing that. We are providing our legal advice to civil society organizations. So there are civil society organizations that are sent out to the legal clinic. We have
Okay.
over 80 civil society organizations, 40 in Mosurado, 40 in Nima County, that are sent out to the legal clinic and that have been having access to the legal clinic. So what we also do, we provide mentorship. We go to their offices and then we see what some of the progress they are making in terms of analysis of these different legislations. So we have set of legislations that we are looking at. For
Okay.
example, we are looking at the revenue sharing law, and then basically we are looking at some of the provisions that are linked to education in terms of improving education. We are looking at the Local Government Act,
Mm.
and the Local Government Act was passed in 2018, and then it's been into force. So we expect that government should be able to implement some of the different provisions that are there that are essential in terms of improving the decentralization processes. So we also have the Freedom of Information Law.
Okay.
The Freedom of Information Law that was passed in 2010, and then up to date, we expect that government ensure that the basic provisions of this law are implemented to ensure that citizens have access to public documents that are necessary, especially those documents that don't have any security implications and so forth. So citizens should be able to have access to that. And that law also says that every line administration agency should be able to have a personnel who is designated specifically to be able to deal with the public in terms of if you need any information, if you went to the Ministry of Internal Affairs, you need any information, that person will be able to provide to you.
Are
And
you
then we're
also
thinking that provisions is also necessary that the government do that.
okay?
Then we also have the Educational Reform Act, which
Yes.
was
Okay.
also passed in
Before you come
2010.
to that, are you
Yeah.
also ensuring that those laws are available? Is it part of your
Yeah, yes,
advocacy for
yes.
the
So what we were
public to
able,
access?
to do, we're able
Mm.
to simplify some provisions of these legislations, and
Okay.
even in totality or the entire law, we're able to do a simplified version and then share with some of our civil society organizations who are signed out to the legal clinic and so forth.
Are
Even some of
you?
the meetings, the engagement we have been
Mhm.
having, we have been sharing the documents
How
with
about
our
having these
partners. Yeah.
laws online for public to access and
Yes, so we have not been able to build a platform where citizens can have access to these different legislations, but
mm.
we are planning on that to see how can people, if they want to have access to the document. But if you want a hard copy of the document, we are then able to simplify them, then you can have a copy and so forth. Yeah.
Could you also impress on those institutions to make sure they are available to the public? They have websites. All of them have websites.
Yeah.
FOR, for example,
So
there's this.
that's
Mhm.
one of the issues I was talking about in terms
Mm.
of the FO Act. So the law says that public information should be made and available.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's why they say every ministry and agency or public institution should have a designated person
Mm.
who is responsible in terms of making. If, for example, I went on the website of the Ministry of education or the Ministry of Gender, and I don't see any information. I went to the ministry. I should be able to meet that particular person who has been designated and paid by the ministry. That person should be able to provide that pieces of information that I need as per the FOI and the Freedom of Information Law. So these are some of the issues that we're talking about and so forth. So the 2011 educational reform law, we are also been looking at that, and then we have been able to simplify this. We are looking at some of the gaps within the law in terms of what the government have not been able to do, and then there's a need to do that. For example, like as I said, and then you have a licensing of teachers, public school teachers, and even within the entire country, the law says every person that teaches and at the university should be licensed. And, so the government has not been able to do that, and we think these are some of the issues that are on our mind
within public schools or across the country.
Across the country.
Okay.
Across the country. So if even you are teaching a university, you should be licensed. Okay. Yes, you should be licensed
by the Ministry of Education.
By the ministry. So the law says the Ministry of Education should set guidelines and regulations in terms of how do you obtain your your teaching license and what are the criteria and all the kind of things you should be able to do. But the ministry have not been able to do that since 2011. The law was passed.
Does that include part-time lecturers, for example?
Yeah, everybody. So that's why they say they should set guidelines and regulations. So within that guideline, the ministry will tell you, say, okay, you are a part-time or teacher. So maybe they will say green license. Okay. Maybe they say you are a part-time teacher. Maybe they will say red license, or you are full-time. They will say green, because green it means that you are good to go. You are part-time. It means that you have to get ready to make sure that you move on, because that license can be expire at any time and so forth. Yeah. So it's the ministry that's supposed to do that. But over the past time, the ministry have not been able to do that. And then we think these are basic provisions that are necessary in terms of the transformation that we are talking about. Because if, for example, a teacher does wrong, for example, if someone is teaching Tom and High, and that person is involved with sexual harassment, and the ministry maybe say, okay, you are no longer teaching Tom and High, that person goes to another school. You will be teaching there. But if that person's license is revoked because sexual harassment or sexual assault is a crime under our law, and then that person go to another, that person would do that same thing then. So it's the same case about the law. Lawyers are licensed. And if a lawyer carry on any ethical transgression, that license is revoked. So why can't we revoke the license of a teacher to ensure that people are penalized in terms of what they do and so forth? So that's why we have been on the back of the Ministry of Education to be able to do that. And then we think this is also important.
What are some of the benefits? Let's just talk about the benefits of the licensing regime. What will license do? How will it
okay, this is the benefit. So for example, before I teach at school, I'm gonna be licensed, meaning I have to go through all of the set criteria to be a teacher. I have to go through that training, and so forth before I can get a license. Then the second thing is in the case of ethical transgressions, meaning that if a teacher commits any act that is not good and that teacher is removed from that school, that lesson is revoked, it means that that person can no longer teach. So that person will not carry out bad act to another school. Okay. So that's the benefit about that, and that's why. And this is the same way in the case of the legal fee. So lawyers, this is why they are very, very careful in terms of what they do. If a lawyer misbehave on a client, the National Bar will revoke the license of that lawyer or will penalize the lawyer. And so you have been seeing that. I think there are many lawyers in our country, their license were revoked or they were suspended because of some unethical issues and so forth. So that's the same thing we think it should be in the educational sector. If we want to transform our educational sector, we should have the political will, and then we should be intentional in terms of what some of the things that we need to look at. And licensing of our teachers, we think is critical in terms of moving forward in our country.
Can you point out some of the gaps or the lapses that you found in maybe the revenue sharing law or the freedom of information law that you've identified through your review?
Yes. So since the passage of the Local Government Act in 2018 or up to now, the government have not been effective in terms of the implementation process. And that although the government aspect the decentralization policies in 2015, the government was able to establish county service centers in all of the 15 counties, but the issues about devolutions has been a challenge, and which has caused many problems in terms of the functioning of the county service centers. If you can bear with me, you understand that, in fact, nearly some of the county centers are closing down because the issue about the decentralizations of signature power. How will you say I should go for a birth certificate in a county, but then it can be signed? You have to kind of time. And many of times, many of the citizens that we have been talking to in the counties, if a birth certificate that is issued in Morovia for 500 is issued in the county for $1,000, sometimes $1,500, because the fact that you have to transport the agent from Bond County or from Grand Crew to Morovia, it would be around even to $10,000. So what's the necessity of the decentralization? Are we saying is that's a decentralized process? So why are we afraid of? If you have the superintendent in the county who is presiding over the decentralization process, why can't you give the power to the superintendent if you are perhaps you don't want the county service coordinator to sign the certificate, but then why the superintendent can sign it and then the certificate has to come to time? That's a delay in the process. So that create even fatigue in the citizens in terms of even going to the process because they are already weak and tired, and they don't want to go there and go through that bureaucracies and so forth. Even in terms of the infrastructure, also some of the county service centers are attached to the wire administrative building. So if the superintendent is not in the building and there's no electricity, obviously the county service center will shut down. Wow. Yes. So at the end, citizens will be waiting in terms of their documentations and so forth, and they can get anything and so forth. So if we want a decentralization process, political will have to be, at the forefront of the entire process.
Okay, so let's get we are running out of time. Time is not our friend. Let's get your parting comment in a minute.
Okay, yeah. So I just want to say thank you to Centard, and this program is very good, and we hope that it's continuing. And then we want to say thank you to you for inviting us. And then one thing I also want to say is in Liberia, we passed all of the laws, but I think the problem is the implementations. We have a lot of legislations that are on the book, but we think the implementation is weak. And then if we can exhibit the full political will in terms of the implementation, we think our country will be all right. And as citizens, we should continue to engage our government in the process to ensure that our government do the right thing for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That's the voice of Joseph Ocheyen, the Executive Director for the Institute for Democratic Action and Development, ADA. He was here talking about some of the activities as part of the Civil Society Activity Project and other projects that ADA is implementing as part of their efforts to ensure that Liberia is a wholesome and functioning society. And that's all the time we have for this edition of the program Integrity Watch. My name is Edward Blamo. I've been here as your host and ably assisted by Mark W. Bondao. Together brought you this program. Until next Wednesday about the same time, we will be here for another edition of the program. Bye-bye.